Minnesota is an aging community, but are we prepared to help a diverse community? There are many concerns in the LGBTQ community. However, there is hope, and JustUS Health is here to help, and that's what's next. Welcome to What's Next. My guests are Rick Laska, Director of Clinical Services for JustUS Health, and Phil Duran, Director of Advocacy, Research, and Education for JustUS Health, and an experienced attorney and civil rights advocate. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
This a study points out that about 48,000 Minnesotan adults are LGBTQ, and there are about 30,000 here in the Twin Cities. So this makes the LGBTQ elders the largest minority in the region. And the mission of JustUS Health is to work for equitable health care access and outcomes for people who experience injustice at the intersection of health status and identity. And so let me add to that also, that's at any age. So Phil, we're going to start with you. Tell me about how 3 organizations came together in 2018 to create JustUS Health.
That's right. Well, there were 3 organizations in town. All of them were well known and very well regarded in their fields. So the Minnesota AIDS Project had been around for something like 35 years, since the early 1980s. Rainbow Health Initiative was created in 2000 as a product of the tobacco. Back in those days, it started off as a tobacco cessation program and then branched out. Training to Serve was created in partnership with the Metropolitan Area Agency on Aging in around 2008, and they provided service trainings to people who provided services to older adults on how to work well with LGBT older adults. Every one of these organizations had some amazing strengths, and every one of them also found opportunity to build on what they were doing in partnership. And so in 2018, the first merger was between MAP and the Rainbow Health Initiative, and then a few months later we finalized the deal with Training to Serve, which came in. And we build on those 3 legacy areas in the work that we do in the areas of HIV, LGBTQ health, and aging in both contexts. And so every day we're finding new opportunities to weave those themes together and to talk about those issues in conjunction. And so as we progress, the services that we provide, the education we provide, just keeps getting richer, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about some of the services now
Absolutely.
that are provided by JustUS Health.
Yes. So I'm the Director of Clinical Services. One of the first programs that launched after the initial merger between Rainbow Health Initiative and the Minnesota AIDS Project was the Behavioral Health Services Clinic, where we have licensed mental health practitioners as well as clinical trainees who are working with clients who come in the door who need assistance with their mental and chemical health. We do this from a perspective that really embodies some of the issues that the founding clinicians really saw in their work, specifically around trauma-informed care, and trauma can look like anything from one-time events that deeply impact us to just ongoing relational traumas that happen during our development, during our childhood, and even in our adulthood. That we're coming from a risk reduction place, that we're not prescribing a path to healing and recovery, that we're here to walk with you on that journey, not tell you how to get to a place that is considered healed. Mm-hmm. That we're centering relationships as the healing force in the work. As well as just being positive about all expressions of identity and celebratory and welcoming of people's diverse intersecting identities. No one is just one thing. They're coming in, whether it be with their ethnic, racial heritage, with their sexual orientation, with their gender identity, however they may be coming in. We want to provide a space that doesn't feel oppressive or doesn't feel like it resembles some of the systems that have historically excluded the populations that we've worked with. And we do individual therapy, relationship therapy, group therapies. We even have some therapists who will work with kiddos down to 7 or 8 who either identify maybe as questioning or as part of the spectrum, or even just they're children of parents who are LGBTQ plus identified.
So in 2018, this area of clinical service was really highly identified as one of the areas that they weren't being served.
Yes.
Yeah, and this community wasn't being served.
Yes.
Even though we have a great network of hospitals,
Yes.
it still wasn't being addressed.
Yes. It was more individual practitioners that people found out in the community. And there's been some great efforts to centralize ways to find providers. However, there wasn't an entity that just kind of held the torch and said, hey, we're here specifically for these people. And to come on board and to be the director and helping shape the future of the clinical services at JustUS Health, it's just been such a privilege because finding the people that have historically not succeeded in traditional settings is what I love doing. And to be able to do that in the ways that we've been able to has just been so exciting for me.
Now, in the greater Minnesota, we have, I mean, a lot of people know about this inside the Twin Cities area, in the metro area, but in greater Minnesota, maybe the knowledge isn't quite as well. So how would you look at the experiences of those in greater Minnesota, and how might they be able to take advantage of what JustUS Health offers?
Sure. Our experience is, and I don't think this is going to come as any surprise, that LGBT folks in Minnesota tend to be concentrated in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, but there are substantial numbers of folks who don't live here and who are throughout greater Minnesota. They were born there, they want to stay there, and that's fantastic. Our hope is that no matter where you are in Minnesota, there are services and supports that are available to you that meet you where you are, get you where you need to go. The reality is that sometimes folks in greater Minnesota in small towns are afraid to go to the doctor's office or to a therapist's office and to talk about their personal matters, because even though we appreciate that doctors and therapists and so on recognize the importance of privacy and confidentiality, if you're seen going there or someone overhears a question, these things have a way of getting out. And so some people will hesitate to seek care, whether it's mental health care, whether it's physical health care. And so sometimes you find folks, you see folks whose circumstances just kind of worsen because they're afraid to seek care. One of the programs that we inherited was the Train to Serve model, which goes out into the community and talks to service providers on how to work with older adults. We take that show on the road, and so we're all over the place in Minnesota. We certainly promote the services that we offer, including the clinic, at conferences throughout the state. We partner. A lot of the work that I do has historically been involving transgender individuals, and so just in the past couple of years, we've seen the emergence of very focused transgender-related care programs at Mayo in Rochester, places like CentraCare in St. Cloud. There's a group that's coming together somewhat informally in Duluth. So I mean, it's definitely happening, and so we partner with them. We find ways to support them, but there's so much more work to do.
Are you invited to these communities, or is this something where you, as the organization, already has identified a community that probably needs a little more education?
It's a bit of both. A lot of the work that I think we do with regard to trans issues, for example, with aging, is usually invitation. Won't you come here and share this knowledge? One of our other trainers really focuses on programs for mental health, chemical health, and HIV, and the intersection of those issues. That's one where she usually will go out to the community. We are going to be in greater Minnesota. We're going to be there 4 times this year. Here are the communities we're going to go to, and then we promote the programs in those communities. So we do a bit of both. We try to be very responsive to invitations and requests for training and consultations and so on. And we've got a really good team.
And then as a result of that, are you seeing then folks come to the Twin Cities for their help, or at least ask for your help in setting up something that would be for greater Minnesota? Do you work as a liaison for that, or just here?
Yeah, a bit of both. I know that they're not just us, and I'm sure the clinic is true for this as well, but I know that there are other providers in town who provide similar kinds of services, not necessarily the counseling, but they tell the stories of people coming for hours. Some of our partners over at the University of Minnesota talk about, we have a waiting list that's a mile long, and people are coming from all over the Midwest to come and do this stuff. And so there's a huge need. And so to the extent that we can provide information to the service providers, to facilities, here's how to do this, here's how to do this well, we're here for you, we're here to help you understand the issues and how to serve your clientele better, we're happy to do it.
And part of the hope with the clinic as well as we grow, and our therapists are seeing an increasingly diverse caseload coming from all over the metro area and starting to move towards the outskirts, is that we're getting requests from providers to come and provide clinical education for providers in greater Minnesota. And we're also trying to figure out how can we maybe be part of serving that community through technology and telehealth, things like that. And are we at the or do we have the capacity to do that at this time? It's there's a lot of options, and I think a lot of hope that we can put into that, but also not just keep it all to ourselves. That we want to have Minnesotans who are aging to have services regardless of where they are, and it doesn't have to just be centered around getting services through JustUS Health.
About the 2 different dates and what are happening on the 2 different dates.
Sure. The Opportunity Conference was a legacy of the Rainbow Health Initiative, and they developed this. The first one was in 2017, so this is our 4th year. Historically, their approach was to have a 2-day professional conference. In other words, the target audience were doctors, nurses, counselors, people in the profession. It was your standard kind of continuing education sort of conference. And that's fantastic, and it provides a lot of benefit. We're going to do it a little bit differently this year. We're going to do that on one day, that's Monday, April 20th. But the other day, Saturday, April 18th, we're trying something different, because yes, we absolutely need to be able to reach providers in all of these different fields and say, here's the latest in your field about how it relates to the folks that we serve. But we haven't really pivoted from the providers to the consumers, in essence. And this was a tremendous opportunity. The Minnesota AIDS Project had such a deep reach into the community, for example. And so we're trying to build on that legacy with the conference. And so the first day, technically, Saturday, is a community day that we've been referring to. So the target audience is anybody off the street. So people who are interested in health issues related to sexual orientation, gender identity, HIV status, or aging, or obviously the combination of some of these. Both of them will have a day-long set of workshops and programs that fall into those categories. And we're hoping that by both reaching the providers and then reaching the consumers, both populations are really end up getting well served and understand there are additional options and opportunities that are out there.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Lots of things going on at JustUS Health.
Absolutely.
Congratulations for all the programs and
Thank
for
you.
this one coming up. For more information then on the Opportunity Conference and on other services JustUS Health provides, just head to justushealth.org.